Hello everyone and welcome back to Prestige Reef. When I first started my channel, a lot of my videos were focused on the more philosophical side to reef keeping, and today I'm going back to my roots. So I have a question for you. Are you creating your own perfect tank? Or are you creating what you think to be your own perfect tank? The reality is it's all a matter of perception. There is no right or wrong answer. This topic came into my head during a live stream. I showed Reef Dog a coral which I liked, and felt momentarily confused when he showed no interest in it, and in return, he showed me an uninteresting blue acropora, which had no appeal to me. Humans are very heavily influenced in all aspects of our lives, based on both other people and our surroundings, and this absolutely applies to the hobby as well. So how do we pick our livestock? Partly it comes down to visual beauty. Similar to art, sometimes we just like what we like, and there is obviously a visual appeal to almost all corals. This, however, is an interesting one, because although again it's a matter of perception, a very good test of how visually desirable a coral is to show corals to someone that doesn't know about corals. People often bring their partners to collect corals from my farm, and I like to ask what coral their partner likes the most. The winner, hands down, is almost always Xenia or a Euphyllia, and not one person has ever picked an SPS coral. I find this fascinating considering many of us aspire to have a full SPS tank, which leads me nicely onto my next point. How difficult something is to keep absolutely has an impact on our choices. The desirability of these corals in this instance isn't necessarily down to their beauty, but either how easy they are to keep or how hard they are to keep alive. On a slightly different note, although this is purely speculation, I have long believed that people get an element of a rush that gamblers get when they're buying something expensive for their tank, knowing there is always the possibility that they could lose their new purchase and in turn their money. If you're a beginner, SPS corals have a certain level of fear attached to them, which makes them more undesirable. However, when most of us, even with a small amount of knowledge, see a tank full of large acropora colonies, our awe comes from knowing the time, effort, and to some extent the stress involved with keeping a tank like that alive, and that the hobbyist needs to be on top of their game to be able to have success with this tank long term. Price and rarity also have a role to play. These two usually go hand in hand, and although this does apply to corals, it's easier to explain when referring to fish. For example, let's look at tangs. A black tang, arguably, is the least visually interesting of all the Zebrasoma tangs, with the exception of maybe a Scopas tang. Yet they're one of the fish which I want the most. Now for me, this is history repeating itself, because at one point I felt exactly the same way about gem tangs. Yet now that I own one, I don't feel that it's any more special than any other fish. So if you think about it like this, I could save you an awful lot of money because you're likely to have exactly the same experience. Part of this is because I've got used to seeing it in my tank every day, and the other part is that they're now far more readily available, so they're no longer anywhere near as rare as they used to be. Like with most things, as soon as everyone else has something, its appeal starts to evaporate. Now I'm sorry because I'm about to upset a lot of people, but buying whatever coral is fashionable at the time is stupid. A lot of it actually comes down to very clever marketing. For example, I sell a ton of Raja Rampage chalice, but in reality, it's mostly green. And green is such a common colour in our tanks, therefore why would anyone want more of it? Chalice corals have some of the most diverse range of colours and patterns, and the majority of these other chalices are also a fraction of the cost, which is why it blows my mind. People don't buy Raja Rampage because they are the most beautiful chalice. They aren't buying them because they are easier or harder to keep than any other chalice. They are buying them because they are fashionable and people want to be part of the latest craze. Now I'll be honest with you, to some extent, I'm guilty of all of these. I'm not some sort of superhuman that can resist the urge of something rare, expensive or fashionable. This video was merely designed to make you think. So I shall take you back to the beginning and leave your answers in the comment section below. How many of you are guilty of these? And are you creating your own perfect tank, or are you creating someone else's perfect tank? Because the reality is, we are the only ones that have to live with it on a day-to-day basis, And I'll let you in on a little secret. No one really cares what you decide to keep anyway. So get whatever you want. I hope you enjoy watching my video. Please feel free to comment below if you have any questions. If you did enjoy it, why not click that like and subscribe button. As always, I want to say a massive thank you to all the people that support the channel on Patreon. Have a good week, and I'll see you next time.